Hello everyone, today I will continue sharing the story of the single mother, Dieu Hân. After the break-in that took away all the savings she had worked so hard to accumulate, Hân felt as if her entire world had collapsed. In the small, dilapidated house deep in the forest, she silently held her baby tightly in her arms. Beside her, her friend who had shared every meal and hardship with her, looked at her with deep concern in her eyes. "Hân, we can't just let this go on. We have to report it to the police. What if the thieves come back?" Said firmly. Hân shook her head slightly, her tired eyes downcast. "But I don't even remember their faces clearly. Will reporting it even help?" Placed her hand on Hân's shoulder, gripping it as if to give her strength. "At the very least, they need to know so they can keep watch. Think of Tom. You have to protect him." At the mention of her son, Hân's heart tightened painfully. After a moment of silence, she nodded. "All right. I'll go tomorrow." The next morning, Hân and hurriedly packed up. Hân planned to pick rambutan near the edge of the forest to sell, while intended to go deeper into the woods to dig for bamboo shoots. Before leaving, they entrusted little Tom to their neighbor, Ms. Men, for safekeeping. Walking along the rough dirt road, the two women chatted as they went, trying to push aside their worries. But when they reached the fork in the road where had to go deeper into the forest, Hân couldn't help but feel uneasy. That path was silent and overgrown, as if the dense trees swallowed up all the sunlight. "Maybe I should walk with you for a bit," Hân suggested cautiously. Smiled and shook her head. "No need. There are still a few houses nearby. You just go pick your rambutans before it gets too late." Reluctantly, Hân nodded. The two of them split up, each heading in a different direction. But as Hân walked away, a sense of unease gnawed at her. Anna's words from the night before echoed in her mind. "For Tom's sake, you have to report this to the police." Biting her lip hard, Hân turned back. Instead of picking rambutans, she held her child close and walked quickly toward the local police station, the only place where she felt she might find a glimmer of hope. This time, Hân wasn't just reporting the theft. She was seeking protection. For herself, for little Tom, and for An, the friend who had stood by her through the harshest days in the depths of the forest. While Hân was walking alone to the commune police station to report the theft, near the shabby hut where she lived, two thieves appeared, moving stealthily. They hid behind thick bushes, whispering to each other and plotting something. A moment later, Vi showed up. The two thieves immediately grabbed him to demand money. It turned out that Vi was the mastermind behind everything. He had hired the two thieves to teach a lesson, but the previous day they failed to find her. "How's it going?" Vi asked in his raspy voice. One of the thieves scowled. "Not done yet. We didn't catch on last time. This time you'll have to pay more if you want us to continue." Vi gritted his teeth, pulled a small stack of cash from his pocket, and handed it over. "Fine. But this time you better not fail. Make sure An remembers this lesson for the rest of her life. I won't let her live in peace." The two thieves nodded, their eyes flashing with menace. They had taken the money. Now all they needed was the right moment to strike. Just then, in the distance, An appeared, carrying a basket, heading deeper into the forest to gather bamboo shoots as usual. Vi quickly signaled to the thieves. "There. Let's move," he whispered, a sinister smile curling at the corners of his lips. The three of them crept through the dense bushes, silently tailing on. They moved like predators stalking their prey, their eyes locked firmly on their target. On her way to the police station, Hân walked anxiously, her heart pounding. Images of strange men lingering around her home haunted her mind. They often appeared suddenly, watching from a distance or asking vague questions about An. Every time she recalled those moments, a chill ran down her spine. Thinking of Tom and her close friends still at home, she quickened her pace, her small feet almost running, desperate to find help. The road to the commune office was not long, but it was winding and eerily quiet. The wind from the forest carried the damp scent of earth and the cold air of the early morning. Han clutched her shirt tightly and took a deep breath, summoning her courage. In her mind there was only one thought. I have to report this to the police. I must do something to protect On and my son. When she finally arrived at the police station, Han stepped in nervously. The officer on duty, seeing her frail figure covered in dirt, quickly invited her to sit down. Without hesitation, Han recounted everything she knew. The break-in, the stolen savings, and the strange men lurking around her area. She described every detail she could remember. Their height, their build, and even the raspy voice of one of the thieves. Listening intently, the officer nodded, his expression serious. Lately, there have been several similar thefts in this area. Don't worry, we'll start investigating immediately. He then picked up the phone and called his team, instructing them to increase patrols around Han's neighborhood. This has to be handled fast. We can't let them run wild any longer, he said firmly. Relieved that someone was finally taking her seriously, Han bowed in gratitude and asked to leave. Before she could go, however, the officer reassured her. We'll send people over this afternoon. If anything unusual happens, contact us right away. Carrying this glimmer of hope, Han headed straight to the rambutan orchard. She had to pick as many as she could to sell, hoping to earn a little money for the next few days. The orchard was in its early season, with branches heavy with fruit. The red, ripe rambutans contrasted beautifully with the green, unripe ones, creating a vibrant picture of nature. Climbing up the trees, Han's small hands worked quickly, cutting each bunch with practiced skill. Though her palms were rough and sore from endless labor, every thought of little Tom gave her new strength. Soon her basket was full to the brim. She carefully trimmed and bundled the fruit into neat clusters, making them easier to sell. Just as she was about to pick more, the sky suddenly darkened, and a gust of wind brought a heavy downpour. With no other choice, she quickly put on her raincoat and shielded the basket of rambutans. Cold rain lashed against her face, but Han refused to stop. The kind orchard owner, seeing her situation, reduced the rental price for her. Keep going, Han. Heaven doesn't abandon those who try, the woman said with a warm smile. With her full basket strapped on her back, a small scale in one hand and plastic bags in the other, Han hurried to the market. She chose a small spot near the entrance, laying out the bright red rambutans neatly. Soon customers began flocking to her stall. Before long, her basket was almost empty. Eventually, she sold every last piece of fruit, earning just enough to cover a few days of expenses. On her way home, Han stopped by Mrs. Men's house to pick up Tom. The little boy squealed with joy upon seeing his mother, his tiny hands reaching out. Han hugged him tightly and handed Mrs. Men a small bundle of rambutans. Thank you, Han. You always think of me whenever you have something good, Mrs. Men said gratefully. Hand in hand, mother and child walked down the muddy path leading back to their little home in the forest. The rain had stopped, the air was cool and fresh, and the sun peeked through the canopy, casting soft golden light on the road ahead. Though life was still full of hardships, in that moment, Han felt a spark of hope returning to her heart. After a whole day working in the rain, Han's body felt completely drained. When she returned to the small old house nestled deep in the forest, all she wanted was to rest. But little Tom, her poor, innocent child, was still waiting for his mother to feed him. Han gently picked him up, her body shivering from the cold, yet she tenderly soothed him and fed him spoonful after spoonful of porridge. When Tom was finally full and fell asleep, Han let out a small sigh of relief, but she didn't dare rest for long. There was still so much to do. Pushing aside her fatigue, Han put on her worn raincoat and grabbed a knife before heading to the garden. The sound of the blade chopping into banana trees echoed sharply in the quiet surroundings. She cut and staggered, her arms trembling from exhaustion and cold. Sweat mixed with the rain trickled down, sticking to her pale face. When she was done, Han carried the heavy bunches of bananas back, chopping them into pieces to feed the ducks. Their quacking filled the yard as she forced herself to keep working, sweat soaking through her thin shirt. Then she moved on to feed the chickens, her stiff hands refusing to stop until the very last task was complete. Only then did she collapse onto the bamboo chair in the kitchen, closing her eyes as a throbbing headache struck. A relentless cough tightened her chest as if it were being squeezed. Han placed her hand on her forehead, feeling the deep chill spreading through her body. Slowly, she dragged herself toward the bed, pulled a thin blanket tightly around her, and curled up, shivering like a child. She only meant to rest for a moment, but the crushing fatigue soon weighed her eyelids down. The sound of Tom crying broke the silence and startled her awake. She hurriedly picked him up, soothing him despite her pale face and the deep dark circles under her eyes. Even in her weakness, Han patiently fed her son, forcing a smile as if to hide her exhaustion from him. When Tom finally fell asleep again, Han went out to the garden to gather medicinal herbs. Each step felt heavy as lead, but only one thought filled her mind. She had to recover for her child's sake. She collected handfuls of forest herbs, the same kind her grandparents used to treat colds, and brought them back home. By then night had fallen. Darkness blanketed the forest. Han lit the stove and boiled the herbs in a pot of water. Steam soon filled the tiny house. She wrapped herself in a blanket, leaning over the pot, inhaling the hot vapor deeply. Her eyes stung, sweat dripped down, but little by little, the chill inside her eased. Leaning against the wall, Han glanced out the door. It was pitch dark, rain still falling steadily, but her friend who lived with her had yet to return. A flicker of worry passed through her, but her exhausted body left her powerless to go search. She's probably just running late, Han whispered to herself as if to calm her own heart. When the steam treatment was done, Han held Tom in her arms, rocking him to sleep. Even though she was so tired she could barely stand, she sang softly to him, her weak voice filled with tenderness. After putting him down beside her, she blew out the dim oil lamp and lay down. Inside that small house deep in the forest, the sound of rain hitting the roof mingled with the wind howling through the cracks. Han closed her eyes, her frail body slowly slipping into sleep, unaware that somewhere out there in the dark, Han had not yet come home, and another storm was quietly approaching. While Han was fast asleep on the rickety bamboo bed, the sound of the forest wind whistling through the cracks in the door, and the steady rain outside lulled her into a deep slumber. But Han had no idea that not far away, her only close friend, was living through a terrifying nightmare. Han ventured deeper into the forest, basket in hand, intending to gather bamboo shoots as usual. She had no idea that from the moment she left the village path, 3 shadowy figures had been silently tailing her. Hidden in the thick bushes, 3 men, Vi and 2 thieves, watched her every move. They crept forward so quietly that not a sound was made, their cruel eyes and heavy, rasping breaths a clear sign of the danger drawing closer. When Han reached a deserted path where the trees blocked out even the moonlight and darkness swallowed everything. Whack! A heavy blow struck her from behind, leaving her dizzy. Before she could react, a rough sack was pulled over her head. Her muffled cries were choked off as coarse hands tied her arms and legs tight. She was hoisted onto a shoulder like a sack of grain and carried deeper into the forest. They brought on to an old, decaying shack in the woods, where only the sound of the wind howling through its rotten gaps filled the air. When the sack was finally pulled off, Han saw Vi standing there, arms folded, his sinister face half hidden in the shadows. As the 3 men plotted, the curly-haired thief's phone rang. The loud, angry voice of his debt collector barked from the other end, making him scowl. His eyes gleamed with calculation. After a moment he smirked. "Sell her to the creditor. Done deal." Vi immediately shouted, "No, she's mine." But before he could finish, The bald thief swung a brutal punch, knocking Vi to the ground. Vi was tied up in a corner like a helpless beast. Without hesitation, the two thieves bound on even tighter, gagged her and dragged her out. Sometime later, Vi regained consciousness. Panicking when he realized Dawn was gone and that the two thieves had betrayed him, he bolted. On his way, he ran into Dan. Seeing Vi sneaking around, Dan grabbed him, and after a brief interrogation, Vi finally confessed. But he didn't know exactly where the thieves were taking on. Alarmed, Dan forced Vi to lead him back to the shack where they had kept her. Meanwhile, Dawn struggled in despair. The ropes cut so deep into her wrists that they bled. Hot tears streaked down her cheeks, mixing with raw fear. They dragged her through the pitch-black forest, no lights, only the shrill cries of insects and the snapping of twigs underfoot. When darkness fully descended, they stopped to rest. Dawn was tied hand and foot, gagged. The curly-haired thief, the kinder one, tossed her a few sweet potatoes. "Eat. You'll need strength if you want to be worth something." The bald one sneered. "Watch her. If she runs, I'll break her legs." Dawn shuddered. She knew if she didn't escape now, she might never see daylight again. Feigning weakness, she gestured that she needed to relieve herself. The curly-haired thief hesitated but eventually dragged her away, not wanting her to soil the camp. And in that brief moment, Dawn bolted. The rope scraped her skin raw, her bare feet bled from sharp stones, but she didn't stop. Behind her, furious shouts rang out. "Damn it! Stop her!" Their footsteps pounded the forest floor like war drums. Anna's heart raced wildly. Branches lashed her face, her clothes were torn to shreds, but she ran. "Catch her! Don't let her escape!" The thieves roared, their voices splitting the night. Anna no longer knew where she was going. Only one thought pushed her forward. If she stopped, she would die. And back in the tiny shack miles away, Han still slept peacefully, completely unaware that out there, in the pitch-dark forest, Dawn, her dearest friend, was fighting desperately for her life.
Những khó khăn chồng chất, mệt mỏi từ thể xác đến tinh thần, cuối cùng người mẹ đơn thân này cũng gục ngã. Cô đổ bệnh, mệt mỏi nằm bên cạnh con trai. Còn Ánh, trong quá trình đi hái măng, cô bị 3 tên đàn ông theo dõi và bắt cóc. Liệu trong đêm tăm tối ấy, Ánh có chạy thoát khỏi tay 3 tên đàn ông hay không? Danh có tìm thấy Ánh và cứu giúp Ánh hay không? Mời mọi người đón xem ở video tiếp theo. Mọi người nhớ để lại nhận xét ở dưới phần bình luận. Nhớ like, share, bật chuông thông báo để nhận thông báo khi mình đăng video mới nhất. Cảm ơn mọi người đã xem hết video của mình. Rất mong mọi người ủng hộ kênh của mình để mình có động lực ra những video mới nhất. Xin chào và hẹn gặp lại mọi người.